Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking all about buttons in our UI elements in Unity. So here is the canvas that we started out with last time with one minor change. I've got a button text component that I've added. So this is just a text component, but I've called it button text because it's going to do something special with a button here in a moment. But for the time being, this text is empty. Nothing happening. I've also added, we can't see it, but if I go to my game preview, there's a sphere hanging out here. And this sphere has a script attached to it called my sphere. So let's take a look at that real quick. All my sphere is doing, I got rid of update and I got rid of start because I don't need any of that stuff. My sphere has one method and one method only, and that method is called DestroyMe. And when DestroyMe is called, the sphere destroys its game object. And we're going to set those up to be triggered by a button here in a moment. But for now, let's talk about what buttons are in general. So just like with text, buttons are a UI component, meaning that they are layered on the canvas and they appear in the same place relative to the camera every time we run the game. So no matter what our camera does, no matter what our objects do, the UI elements are always in the same place. So I'm going to go back to my scene. I'm going to go to my UI elements and I'm going to add a button. And I'm going to move this button over here a little bit just so it's out of the way. And let's talk a little bit about what our options are for a button. So buttons have a few different options. We don't care about all of them. The big ones that I want to highlight is what happens when a button is clicked. So first of all, there's a checkbox here called Interactable. If the Interactable button is unchecked, then that means our button cannot be clicked in the game. Hop over here. Go over here now. Can't interact with my button. So usually we want Interactable to be checked, but we can change it so for part of the game, you know, like sometimes if you go into a menu and you're in a part of a game where a certain menu item can't be used, that might be a scenario where we might uncheck Interactable if there's a button that can be used sometimes, but not all the time. We also have some colors here that change the interactions with the button. So we have the normal color of the button, which is white. We have the highlighted color, which right now looks to be also white. And then we have a pressed color. I'm actually going to change these guys. We're going to change our highlighted color to be red and our pressed color to be purple, just to show a pretty dramatic change. I want purple, this purple. Now I'm going to run my game. Go over to my button. It's red when it's highlighted, so when I hover over it, it's red. And then when I click it, it turns purple. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that beautiful change in color. So highlighted color is kind of our hover color. Pressed color. Disabled color, we saw that gray when Interactable is turned off. That's the gray color that my button becomes. And then fade duration just means that when I click the button, how long does it take for the color to change back? So some very simple visual options for my button. We also have, you may be wondering, how do we change the text on the button? The button actually has inside of it a text component. So the text component is what actually controls what's displayed on the button. The button itself is simply a background. Notice that the text component's anchor is the button. See the anchor points here? Remember that a split anchor, and this is important to keep in mind, a split anchor means that a button will always occupy the same space. So because this text anchor is set to the corners of our button, that means that if our button grows or shrinks, our text will grow or shrink with it, which is what we want. If these anchors were together, we may end up in a situation where our button text is off-center, or our button text may be completely off of our button if we're not careful. So these anchors make it so that the button text always stays in the middle. I'm going to change this text to press me. And we're going to actually get into some interactions with our buttons here. Now, the interaction I'm going to show you is relatively simple. For your lab, you're going to build upon this a little bit. But let's take a look at our button interactions. So down here, we know how to change the color of the button. We know how to change the text of the button. But What's really important is what happens when a button is pressed. There is a section here called onClick, and it says list is empty. Unlike collision detection, a button can be given any method we want to describe what behavior happens on click. For example, we can use built-in methods that are already part of Unity. I want this button text component to say something when the button is pressed. So I'm going to press the little plus here, and I'm going to select my button text object as the thing that I'm going to call a method from. So when this thing is clicked, it's going to go to my button text game object. And then for function, I'm looking for a function inside. These are all the things that a text is. A text is a game object. It has a rect transform, a canvas render. But what I'm interested in is the text component. Remember that in our code, whenever we want a label to change, we always call text.text. So what I'm looking for is inside of text, I'm looking for the text property right here. This is just like calling text.text inside our script. So then text.text requires that I set a value. I am going to set this to button pressed. No, actually, better. Hello world. This is exactly the same thing that's going on here. So when I create a text object and then I set that object's text property equal to something new, I'm doing the exact same thing. Here, I'm just doing it in Unity's interface. So I'm saying the text component's text element is set to hello world whenever this button is pressed. So let's try it. Press me, and there's hello world. Now, obviously, I can press it a bunch of times, and hello world doesn't go away because I haven't set any code to do that. So that's a built-in method. Let's call a method that we create. So I've got my sphere in this scene. Hopefully it's still there. I'm going to run it again. There's my sphere. What if I want custom functionality? So something that I've written. I've written this DestroyMe method, and I want the DestroyMe method to be called. Okay, well, the DestroyMe method, we got to do a little tracing here. The DestroyMe method belongs to the mySphere script, which is attached to my sphere game object. So that may seem like a mouthful, but what that means is in our onClick method, rather than using the button text element, I want to use the sphere game object. I'm going to press the little circle, and I am going to find my sphere. So now I have to tell the button which function do I want to call, or which method do I want to call from my sphere object. Well, I know that it's in the mySphere script, and I know that the method I want is not public. So let's fix that. Public void destroy me. All right, let's try this again. So now we go to button. We say, hey button, look at my sphere. When you are clicked, go into the mySphere script and call destroy me. So we can see that we chose the sphere, which is our object, and then we had to choose the script that attached to my object that's relevant to the method I want to call. So let's see how we did. We have a sphere, press me, and the destroy me method is called. So that's buttons in a nutshell. We can obviously have multiple buttons on the screen, and whenever we set the onClick for each of those buttons, that'll result in different behavior across our objects. One thing that's really important that we've had to do up until now, but we don't have to do right now, is object references. So normally in things like when you guys did your lab for displaying the velocity of a shape, we had to have a reference to that shape. OnClick is already asking for an object reference. So by handing it the sphere and then picking the method we want, we're essentially doing something similar to what we do in code when we make a reference and then call the object. We're just doing it through Unity's interface. So this is the same as somewhere in code creating a sphere variable and calling DestroyMe from that script. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how to use buttons and how we can leverage the on-click method to run custom button functionality. Thanks for watching.